There's 15.
15, then there's Andy's here for the school, right?
Yeah.
Transfer
Although I do live in Etna Township.
Just nice.
So you're missing one person.
Or the fire, but we had part of their company meeting.
No, I missed the one lady that's comes.
Yeah, but 17.
Oh,
I had a construction project, I couldn't figure out.
Don't they think kind of needy?
We were sitting there for days trying to figure out whose fiber was. I bet you, I said, just if I didn't figure it out in about 10 minutes.
All right, well, thank you for coming and for volunteering and taking the time to fill out the application. And you guys were picked by the trustees to be on this board, so you're important. Have good resumes, other important aspects we're looking through. So I'm Jeff Johnson, you know me, I'm one of the trustees. I've been around for 14 years, and before that I was on the zoning board. I was on the board that helped do the first plan, comprehensive plan. And I remember way back when we did like a planning council thing, way back when that was 90 sometimes. So anyways, I thought we'd do is go around, introduce ourselves, and say something, or say where we're from in the township. So Jeff Johnson, I live in Lakeland Hills, which is off the Summit Road, if you know where that is.
I'm Fred Harvey, live on Palmer Road between Tollgate and Winter Road. Farmed there, lived with Dad all my life, so that's my background.
Jackie Katz, I live on Palmer Road, between York and 158.
Alicia Zacher, Cumberland Trails, used to sit on zoning. Judy Gaffmeyer, Royal Acres.
Roger Hummel, we live at the Villas in Cumberland.
I'm Jason Robinson. I live in the Longwood Crossing subdivision. I'm the current HOA president over there. 48 houses in there that kind of represent, so happy to be here. West Virginia native.
We're gonna hold that against you. Go Mountaineers.
I'm Candy Engel. I live in Cumberland Trail, and I'm also on the Board of Education personal facility.
Jeff Hall, I live off of Main Street across from a giant Amazon warehouse. And my office is across the street.
I'm Rick Cox, Cumberland Trail. Used to be on the BZA for 16 years.
I'm Trent Stepp, also Cumberland Trail. I am currently on the BZA here in the township, as well as the appointee to the Southwest Licking Community Water and Sewer District for the township.
Shelley Marie E. Punch, preserve at Royal Oaks.
Craig Feldman, I'm with Licking Heights Level Schools. I live in Etna Township, just a little west of Summit. Or another Amazon.
Steve Perkins, Palmer Road, just on the other side of the York Road intersection from you. Been out there, the property I live on has been part of my girlfriend's family since the 1850s.
Gary Burkholder, I live on Trail East and Cumberland Trail, former township trustee and previously served on the Water and Sewer Board.
My name's Ryan Davis. I live on Watkins Road, and I'm almost across from the school entrance off of Watkins.
Brad Hurd, live on Smoke Road, south side.
Bill Black, I live on Palmer Road, west of Mink, been in the township almost 50 years.
And this is Jim Leonard. He is going to be our proctor, or our person that's going to walk us through this. That's going to help us create that plan with your input. And I'm going to turn it over to him. Let him go.
Thanks. Again, my name is Jim Leonard. Know some of you from my prior life at Licking County Planning Commission. I was there for 5 years doing planning and development, and then I was city manager and planner up at Johnstown for 12 years. And recently left in December after I had about enough of local government for a while and decided to pursue my consulting business full time, which I started in 2016 part time. And so been contracted by the trustees to lend guidance and assistance to this process. of which, I know, sir. Your input is going to guide the next 5, 10, 15 years of development. So, yeah, does everybody have the packet and information? Okay. These are the things we'll go over tonight. It's in your packet there. Tonight will be kind of boring, kind of mundane, but I always like to get people kind of on the same page if you've never done this before. I know Trent, Mr. Cox, Gary, you've done things like this, but it's really important, I think, to make sure everybody's on the same baseline. So I'm not going to go over the agenda. And I'm not formal. If you have any questions, if there's anything I'm saying that you think either I'm crazy or you don't understand, let me know. So we'll do that. Jeff kind of already nailed that. So the next thing, first and foremost, I guess, I had an individual on the committee reach out and wasn't able to come tonight. And so I was talking with Jeff earlier. We have at least I have the capability of streaming through Teams. So, I mean, there's that option that we can publicize, or I can get better prepared next meeting and have a public link that if someone is sitting at home and they're bored and really bored and want to listen to us, you know, they'd have that ability to do it. We would publish it on my website, which I'll go over later. We'll publish it on the township's website, and then we would just, you know, stream it through this device. So what's the committee's thoughts on that? I mean, I can record it as well. We could download it and put it on the website. Any objections to that?
I have no problem with it.
No, I would be in favor of that.
Any nays? All right, cool. So we're streaming. I don't know if Ashley's on. We won't be able to monitor if someone's typing questions or stuff, and they're just going to type to the heart's content. But at least they can watch it and listen to it. So did everyone read the existing comp plan before coming tonight?
Yeah.
I didn't think so.
Fair to say that.
Yeah. Here's a lot of what we're going to do. Basically, the role of the committee is to provide guidance and not actually write the plan. That's what I get paid for. But there's going to be topics each month that we'll discuss. You know, the hot ones are always land use and transportation. So we'll probably have maybe 1.5, 2 meetings on each one of those, and then some of the more mundane things may only take 1 meeting. But all during that time, you know, the conversation, the information that the committee gives to me discusses, you know, we are not going to agree on everything, so we're going to try to come to some, you know, amicable agreements, and if we have to vote, we will on a decision or something. But I was telling Jeff earlier that maybe doesn't have to happen. It rarely does. Usually most people shake their head and kind of go along with the flow as this process makes its way through the next 7 or 8 months. We'll be using some open source public input, so you know, we'll have a public survey out there. It'll be online. We'll have paper copies here, or you know, if someone doesn't have the ability to get online, they can come, get a survey, fill it out, take it home if they want, bring it back, you know, something. So we're going to try and get as much input as we can. I'll tell you, the Village of Hanover's engagement has been almost like 40%, which is crazy. And so that's the goal I want to hit. I want to do better than Hanover's, but we'll see how that goes. But there'll be a public engagement. And I try and get the information out. So we're meeting on Wednesdays. I try and get everything out to you on Friday. So I know you guys are all busy on the weekends, but at least if you have 10, 15 minutes, take a look at what is sent out, just so you can be a little bit more familiar with it before you walk in on that Wednesday. It just leads to better discussion during the day or during the meeting, and y'all are not just listening to me yammer for 2 hours straight. So that is something I'd ask. I mentioned number 4. Not really. You're not writing the plan. You're providing the guidance and shaping exactly the way it should go. And then number 5, everyone's a landowner here, everyone's lives and has a vested interest in the township. I know everyone has their personal biases, but try and set those aside and look at the township as a whole. I know that's really hard to do sometimes, but that's kind of why you're here and the diversity of the people we have on this committee. It'll be better for the entire project, and so I know that's hard, but I always try to put that out there that we're looking at the entirety of the township, not just specific properties here or there. Any questions so far? Again, I told you this might be a little more infield. Here's the tentative schedule. We got you until February. This could fluctuate, depending on if we kind of, I don't want to say breeze through something, but something goes a little bit faster than planned. I had 2 transportation meetings, 1.5, and that's probably actually be 2 meetings in July. And the reason a lot of people ask me, well, why are you doing land use first? Well, if you know where land use is, you can then plan your transportation infrastructure, you can plan everything else. Some people disagree with that theory, but why am I going to put roads somewhere where it's not going to be needed? So hit land use in the very beginning, transportation, housing, environment, economic development, and public services. So you could be excused to the last meeting before. That's like, aha. These are not all the topics. There's some nuance into each one of these. One that I'm trying to get input in is the mobility. Because a lot of, I don't say a lot, there's a movement to try and ditch that second car, try and get out and use trails as a form of walking, and kind of this urban-rural township we have now. Is there something we can do to lessen the amount of traffic, which is you got to get people out of their cars? Can we get them walking to where they want to go? That is kind of a mobility item. This transportation is your typical roads, bridges, your whatever you think of transportation, that's what it is. We're trying to get people to think about mobility in a different light, and some townships have told me, yeah, Jim, that's not us, and that's fine, but at least I want to bring it up. That's my role, is trying to push the envelope with a few of these items, and
I think the mobility part's really good.
Good.
We have schools over here that definitely need walking trails and so forth. We have kids walking everywhere, we have people walking everywhere, so glad to
Good.
join.
Awesome. Yeah, so a piece of that, and people, I was at a meeting the other night, and I said EVTOLs, which is electric vertical takeoff and landing, flying cars, they're going to be here sooner than you think. A lot of people look at me like, you're crazy. They're going to be here faster. So just keep those little tiny nuggets in the back of your mind as we're planning, is that something that we can harness for whatever reason, whether it's economic, socioeconomic, whatever reason, maybe flying cars in 15 years might actually make sense. And where does that infrastructure lie? Broadband's tied to that, a lot of different things are tied to those concepts. Any questions on the schedule and topics? Again, this isn't in stone, but kind of lay out where we are.
How long do you plan on these meetings being? 2-hour meeting, 3-hour meeting, 8-hour meeting?
I like 2 hours. You guys have already put in a full day doing whatever you've done. If we're going 2.5, 3 hours, usually the amount of energy dies, the conversation dies. So if we put in a good 2 hours, maybe a meeting might only take an hour and a half. 2 hours is usually my max, unless there's objections to that.
Do you see some of these meeting twice in a month?
Not
Or
yet.
just everything is the once a month meeting?
Maybe, actually, Mark Evans and I talked about that at the very beginning, was maybe every 3 weeks. Every 2 weeks is a little more difficult for me, only because of Etna's diversity and the amount of stuff that I got to go through. I doubt it'll probably just be once a month. If there's an issue that maybe we want to, if we're having a hot and heated debate on land use and we want to sneak a meeting in, listen, we can do it. I mean, if the committee wants to do it, that's fine. I know you guys are getting paid really well to do this, so I want to be respectful of that and your time. So we'll just have to figure it out. Any other questions?
I'll apologize now, I have to cut out at 10 till 7.
We'll dock your pay as such.
Previous engagements.
Not a problem. Thanks for coming for as long as you could. Do appreciate it. So once our work is done, the CAC, the Community Advisory Committee is what we call it, we'll have a draft. This is how I like to have it. It doesn't have to be this way. Ultimately, the township trustees are the ones that have to approve the document. I recently was given advice from the Licking County Planning Commission, and they do not have to bless this anymore. I don't know, I don't understand it, but they're not. And then by way of background, the Planning Commission is technically the planning staff for the township, and they've all but washed their hands of any involvement with township planning at this point. Good for me, because it's bolstered my business, but you know, townships have to start paying for that service. So usually they have to look at this document, go through the public hearing process, and then adopt it. I've been told that's not the case anymore. So one less staffing, from what I know. Yeah. Good for us, one less meeting, but it's a change of policy from theirs.
How does that work with the utilities?
What do you mean with that, with utilities?
Well, the water and sewer, electric and gas.
Yeah, like something without that.
Oh, sure. Well, electric and gas, I think, are animals that we can ask their input. You know, try being the liaison to the water and sewer district. I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 meetings with myself and their board, and I'm in contact with their staff anyway about different things. So they'll have their opportunities for input, absolutely. In all this, you know, if there's any organization, if the churches got together and said, hey, I want to have a meeting with you, okay, let's have a meeting with the churches. The more input, the better, in my opinion. So if this is the way I guess the trustees want it to flow, we have a recommendation from this body when it's all said and done. Once the draft's complete, we'll send it on to the zoning commission for a blessing there as well, and a ratification. They may say you need to go back and look at something, so we may be back here sometime early next year to look at the concerns the planning or the zoning commission has, which isn't a big deal. Once they like it, then it'll go on to the township trustees for the same thing. They might say, hey, community advisory committee, we think you missed something here, go back and take a look at it. If I had my way, we'll be done in a year with the process. You know, if not, you know, you guys will be done 8 months, hopefully. But if it drags on, you know, obviously that'll be yet to be seen, but that's kind of how the process works with adoption. Any questions on the adoption process? Okay, so what it is we're actually doing and what this document is used for, again, you guys probably understand this, but I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. You know, once this is adopted, the trustees use this document to make any policy decision going forward. You know, usually it's planning and zoning, but there's other things that are involved with roadway construction and items of that nature. So if something comes to the township trustees and it's addressed in the comp plan, at least the trustees should look at it. It's policy, it's not law. They don't have to do that, but they should at least look at it and consider it, and hopefully take this into consideration when they're making their decisions. And it's a long-term vision. We're not talking about what's going to happen next year. You know, this is 5 years down the road. Albeit we're going to think about next year, but this is, you know, 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And that'll be one of our first discussions at our next meeting is what's the planning horizon we're looking for. Because prior to January 21st of this year with Intel, the planning horizon was probably a little longer. But knowing what Etna's already seen with development and their position on the Route 70 corridor, plus Intel, maybe that horizon shrinks a little bit because the trustees should look at this at least every 5 years. But I think 5 years for us is probably a little too short. So maybe we're looking at 10 years. The typical horizon was 20, but that's not set in stone. And so we'll have to figure out exactly what that horizon's going to be. So when we're thinking about the decisions and we're thinking about all those different topics, we're thinking about 2035 or something like that, 2040, what's that going to be? So that'll be one of our discussions in our next meeting.
Will we have any information from the surrounding communities and what they're planning?
Yeah, so the funny thing about that is Pataskla has their plan done, and I've been talking with their planning director trying to get that information. Absolutely. We will be looking at Fairfield County, just south of us. What is it? Lada? Yeah, we'll look at everything. Harrison Township is getting ready to adopt their Grandview comp plan, so yeah, we'll have all that information. I can go on a soapbox about regional plan. So yes, sir, we will have all that. The last one, obviously, if someone is looking to come in and develop here, they should be able to pull that document and look to see what the community values in future development with parks, rec, maybe transportation improvements on a particular area. Obviously land use, if the township has it designated as X and they want to do Y, they know their battle's going to be a little more uphill. If they come in and have a comp plan or a zoning text that is concurrent with what the comp plan says, what the current zoning ordinance says, maybe they're not going to have a big hurdle because they know that the township has already identified property for a particular use. So the public and private landowners will be able to look at this for future use.
Our comprehensive plans, do they consider law?
No.
Well, I want that verified, because this past 6 months, everybody keeps talking about strictly comprehensive plan. You know, if it doesn't match a comprehensive plan, it's not considered.
No,
I think people need to understand that it's not written in stone.
Yep, I should pay you, because that was a great segue into what the comp plan is not. It's not a zoning ordinance, is it resolution? Zoning resolutions here, sorry, if you get the city where it's ordinance. The zoning is law. So, the zoning inspector cannot issue a permit unless it meets the criteria set forth in the zoning ordinance. The comp plan is policy, so it can be subject to interpretation. Well, everything can. But if it's not followed, it's not the end of the world. There may be some legalities with that, so trustees have to figure out if I am going to go against the comp plan, is there a legal ramification, stuff like that. But it is not law. And I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV. It's not subdivision regulations, so that's a whole different ballgame with Lincoln County Planning Commission and how they, once a developer comes in, so that is, what is the roadway depth of the base and the intermediate course and the finished course, some of that vertical stuff. So if something is constructed, that's when those subdivision regulations come in, what the storm ponds look like, how they function. Those are probably the two big ones. So this is not going to take into account those specificities of roadway construction. We're going to talk about it in general. Maybe we'll talk about reduced roadway sizes. Maybe we'll talk about how ponds in general should be, but we won't get into those specifics. And this doesn't actually instigate development. So,
Right, fair to say too, that an older comprehensive plan, the more very common for zoning to do their job in any development as it gets older.
in high growth areas, absolutely.
At some point.
Yeah, like I said, comp plan should be revisited in my opinion, 5 years. In high growth areas, maybe that's every few years. I mean, it doesn't have to be in depth like we're doing now. It could be, done by the staff. Absolutely.
5 years.
Yeah, think about what's happened since 2011. So, yeah, that plays a role in it. Bowling Green Township has a comp plan. They probably don't have to look at it all that often.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. Right. So those things do change.
I had a question. You did mention you're not a lawyer.
Correct.
Okay. However, I know with the existing comprehensive plan, there are some current legal battles because of the wording in the current comprehensive plan that Etna Township is now facing. So what are the ramifications of how we write this comprehensive plan
Yep.
based on our decisions and our wording? I mean, you know, with getting Etna Township into more trouble based on decisions we may make.
Yeah, so when I sent my proposal to the trustees, I said the legalities, the lawyer, that is all going to be the responsibility of the trustees, either hiring outside counsel or working with the prosecutor's office. So there will be a legal review.
Perfect.
Just
That's the
not
question, is there a legal review? of
Yes.
this?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great questions. Anything else? Prior planning, 2011, I actually started this comp plan when I was at the planning commission. I think Gary, maybe, or Jeff, I don't know. Took a couple years to get through, but I think it's important, since there's been so much change, that we kind of forget about this and go forward with what, you know, I don't say blank slate, we can rely on this for a lot of the background information, like the soils type hasn't changed. Floodplains have meandered a little bit probably, but I think just leafing through this and at least familiarizing yourself with it may be a benefit to give yourself a little background of where it was in 2011. But usually this whole process is, but I always ask my wife if she wants to come to this. She doesn't answer. So yeah, but again, take a look at it if you have time. I think it's important. There is valuable information in here. We'll reuse some of it. Again, the stuff that is simple enough to reuse.
Many mistakes in the future, but they will not repeat in the past.
Sure.
It's good to go through that.
Absolutely.
Exactly what it's.
100%. Through this whole process, all these presentations and now the recorded sessions will be available on my website. I found it to be much easier than sending everything to the client, having them post it, and no, I put it up on my website, the township will link to my website. And so if there's someone that has questions or wants to know, hey, what did you guys talk about or what's coming up, point them here, neighborhoodstrategies.co, and all the stuff will be up there. The meeting calendar's up there. You scroll through it, all the maps will be up there. So trying to be as transparent as possible with all this information. Having worked in government, I understand that, so I value that. The public survey will be available there, so the link will be available. The survey results, there's nothing worse than taking a survey and never hearing about it. So I like to make sure those get pushed out there, so everything will be readily available on the comprehensive plan. The agenda, usually the night, or the time I send it to everybody, the presentations will be up there tomorrow. So if you're looking for it, that'll be where it's located.
Do we have any farmers here?
Pseudo.
Any questions?
I have one question. So what we will be doing is creating a plan that will replace the existing comprehensive plan.
Yes, sir.
Not update.
Correct. Yep, if this was, if the plan was done 3-4 years ago, maybe we can use the majority of it, but I think starting fresh since and Jeff, tell me if I'm wrong, but my assumption when I put my proposal together, but what I would be doing is be a fresh plan and starting fresh and going forward from there. A lot of times, it's just as easy or hard, depending on how you look at it, to update one than it is to create a new one. So, if there's a lot of opinions about old plans that really don't sometimes matter with creating an update. I don't say it don't matter, but there just tends to be more conflict. When you look at a 177-page document, there's a lot of room for discord, which is fine, but it doesn't get you any better result than just creating it, in my opinion. So this will be a brand new plan.
So the first thing is the survey.
Yep. Yeah, we'll talk about that next week or next month.
You said it was going to go out in July.
We'll talk about it, it still can go out in July. That's
And what is the time frame for return?
usually 3 weeks. Usually, you'll get the majority of the surveys back in the first 4 or 5 days. Because someone takes it and they think highly of surveys and they'll be like, okay, done. After a week or so, people have forgotten about it. So we'll do a little social media campaign to remind people and refresh them about that. But it'll be a return in about 3 weeks.
Well, there is a newsletter that went out occasionally, from the trustees here. That might be a good place to send that in that newsletter.
Yeah.
As another option of being able to get it out.
So two other things that I've seen done in the village of Hanover, we did a QR code and we mailed, Perry Township mailed just a postcard, and then you had to scan the postcard to get to the website. So that went out, because sending the paper survey is going to be, I don't know how many landowners you got. A lot. Village of Hanover's cost was $1,000 to send out the survey to every resident, because they did obviously postage there and then a self-addressed stamp envelope to get it back. Now it's about 500 people, I think. So there's that. There's a QR code. We can just send people a postcard if the trustees want to do that and get that in people's hands. That said, there's multiple ways.
The newsletter is going out and the information is on there. Even if you go to the website.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll use all those.
It's already
The QR.
something that's
QR's on your.
Absolutely. And in the village or the townships as well. Yeah, we'll saturate it. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, anybody can take that survey. If someone in the township wants to take that township survey, so be it. I don't think we're going to get bots from Russia or something trying to infiltrate our survey response. That was a concern in other townships. We're like, oh, well, I know people in Fallsbury are taking the survey. If they're that bored and they want to give input, I don't think it's a bad thing. Maybe they shop in Hanover. Maybe they're coming at the township. Yeah, I mean, that's a handful. So,
Reminds me to reach out to my friend Boris.
yeah. Absolutely.
So these are not specific to the residents, these can be open to anyone.
Yeah, we'll ask, one of the first questions is going to be, are you a resident? Do you shop here? Do you work here? So that if we want to parse out that information, we'll have that information.
There's no way to know if they truly are.
I mean, there is. It's called a geofence. But if I'm a resident and I want to take my phone, if I work at Chase at Polaris and I want to take it on my phone, they're going to be outside the geofence of Etna Township, but they're still a resident. It just creates more headache.
How do you keep someone from taking 30 surveys because they feel like it?
We could see that. I've never seen it happen. Great question. We can check the IP addresses. If they want to go to 30 different IP addresses and figure it out, more power to them again. But
They got that kind of time they can run for trustee.
yeah. I've never seen it happen. Usually it's pulling teeth just to get people to do more. But I mean, could it happen? Absolutely.
My bigger concern would be some private entity that wanted to influence it in some certain way would have to use the fish side, so the geofencing sounds. You get some corporation in California, got all kinds of ability, they know anything else coming in. They want to be, or whatever the case may be, then, they can set themselves up a lot more. I'm not going to opine on what I think the probability of that is, but I think the possibility is there.
Absolutely. We can look at geofencing.
I also, the survey, correct me if I'm wrong, is just a guide.
Absolutely.
You see something that somebody wants, a warehouse on every corner, that's going to kind of highlight, but this is a good round of people around here that's not going to fit into the.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just a guide. It's information for you all to make decisions. Or it was policy for policy. You guys can throw it out the window or use it as you see fit.
Do you have a survey that's already a standard kind of?
Yeah, we'll go through it just to make sure we tailor it specifically to the township. Yeah, we will recruit.
Sorry, I have a couple of questions before we go on to the
Sure.
next topic.
Yeah,
So last year did read over some of the comprehensive plan.
thank you.
And I saw the population increased. It was kind of crazy, but I didn't see, maybe I missed it. What is Etna's current estimate of population right now?
Be easiest to find out with the new survey.
That makes sense.
About the same as what's
So then I had a guess on it.
It's on 18. It's on 18.7, that's what I thought it was last I saw.
That probably, or at least a close enough approximation.
Yeah.
Yeah, 17.
Around the fingers and toes.
And then the other thing I noticed, the mission statement, or the vision statement, and again, I was skimming through it, but that pretty much looks like what I've been hearing from the public. Are there plans to tweak the mission and the vision statement of the comprehensive plan?
We'll take a look at it and as a committee figure out if there needs to be a tweak, but it'll be evaluated, absolutely. The first meeting, second meeting.
I liked it.
Good.
I printed that section out, two goals, community goals and strategies. And I've heard the same thing you've heard, residents and community goals about preserving the rural atmosphere. We knew there would be growth. We knew that would affect
I don't think there has to be strong compromises or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, there's ways to accomplish this, absolutely. That's what I enjoy about my job. You know, you mentioned the population is 17,000. A city technically is considered 5,000. So you're a city of 7, you know, and you're not set up as a city. You have no income tax. No
Not
tax.
safe or ignorant.
Oh, place. Yeah. All that stuff will be done. I'll have all those demographics done next time. But and you're functioning as a city, but you don't have city resources, so that's always fun. Yeah, great questions. Anybody else? So going over a few, these things are probably things you may have already seen. This is page 12 on the handout. This is the township as it's currently used and taxed. So this is Licking County Auditor's tax data. And as you probably can assume, commercial is red, green is ag, gray is industrial or manufacturing, and then yellow is residential. So that's how it's taxed. That's the best way to figure out how it's actually being used today. So these maps, this data should help formulate, you know, not saying 3/10 right for residential, but if we want to put residential there, well, it's already being used as commercial, so that really wouldn't make much sense. This is whatever else they know. So this is, again, just more reference than anything. Blue is exempt, so you get walk-in schools over here. I think this is the church over here, all this. So all this data is available. This is what it breaks down. So we have acreage, we got just under 6,000 acres of ag, and then residential is 4,500. This means really absolutely nothing except putting things into context going forward. So we know that 5 years from now, we can look at this and say, okay, how much ag do we have now? You know, because in 2022, they had 6,000 acres. Kind of sets that baseline of development going forward. And it's always just interesting to see 1,200 acres or 1,100 acres of industrial. The county auditor has really weird, I don't even know what that truly is. I think those are utility company properties. Commercial is 1,500 acres. Is that people not paying real estate tax is about 900 acres. Yeah. those folks. These are the number of parcels. So 153 parcels of ag property constitutes 6,000 acres of ag. So those are fairly large properties. Then we have really small properties. We have 6,200 properties. Again, a fair amount probably in the Reynoldsburg area. And those will be broken out, so we can talk primarily about the township, but this does take into account the entirety, which would be Reynoldsburg as well. 322 commercial properties. Again, probably a lot of them over. This is currently what the 2011 map is. You can't even see it from that angle, but you see it in your packet. Again, that is what is on the books as of today. First and foremost, when someone thinks of a comp plan, they put that. But most important to that is also the text that goes with it. So, what is the density of residential? What is the densities of ag? What is the Florida area ratio of commercial? You know, all those things dictate rural character or take it away, and you know, have impacts on traffic and all those things. So, what we actually write that corresponds with these districts is probably most important. So we'll be talking, and we'll be discussing what density should go where and do all this stuff, but that'll all be coming through the text. So that's what the current map is now. And we can have as many districts as we want. We don't have to, but there's a lot of districts right now. So we'll have those conversations, you know, it'll probably be more around how the conversation goes. If there's all of these ideas of different densities and different land uses, maybe there's going to be a few more districts, but we don't have to. I know Franklin Township, Franklin, they're just all ag. That's their future land use map. Obviously a different animal in Franklin Township, but you know, we don't have to have all these districts. We could have more districts. Totally up to you. Realize too, the township has to administer this thing, so having all those districts may provide some sort of operational fund, operational expense to going forward, but minimal at best. These were the land uses in 2011. We have the most residential land uses, future land use, I should say, sorry. 8,500 acres were planned for residential, 6,500 for agricultural, and then everything else was kind of mingled in there. So if you go back and compare what we have with what was planned, you can see if there's trends, local commercial and manufacturing were planned. You know, so there'll be more of an analysis in there. So it gives us a little view of what was planned. And these are the number of parcels that were planned for various land uses. I think this one's pretty interesting. So I was working with Bill Rozier, who's the Transportation Improvement Direct Project Manager, who is intimately working with the township on some projects here for roadway. And him and I were just chatting, and he's like, well, how much land's available to develop? I said, okay, that's a good question. My estimation based on a few things, taking out floodplain, which there's not a lot of, taking out some of the smaller parcels, there's about 6,000 acres of somewhat readily available development to take place. Now, obviously, all that is predicated on selling that property. Someone's going to have to sell it, someone's going to have to buy it. Someone's going to have to get the entitlements coming through the township, but there's a lot of potential. Just potential. I mean, we don't know if it's going to be ag, commercial, residential. We're not sure that's this whole process, but those properties show, you know, there's a lot of opportunity. And maybe we set the plan in motion to preserve a lot of the stuff on the south side. You know, there's going to be those discussions, but always good to see what property has some value lending itself towards development. These are some more existing conditions. You're blessed with not much floodplain, a little bit over like Kirkersville. Usually that is a problem, but not much FEMA floodplain. I'm not saying areas don't flood, it's just not recognized by FEMA as an official floodplain. So we'll probably look at maybe park. See if we do some park or something that help preserve some of those. We'll have some riparian buffers, have some grass strips around those floodplain areas to help filter nutrients. We'll talk about all that stuff. Any questions on floodplain?
Main Street is on floodplain. The whole street is not Main Street, it's this one.
Signs indicate.
It's getting worse.
Yeah, with development, all those, absolutely. Yeah, I rarely see flooding in the, and you guys, this goes south, right? This one goes, that's Sycamore? Yeah, so it's not good. This goes in the and that, you know, this could significantly be altered if Fund Valley is successful in all of their projects. Have you guys heard they're going to try to elevate Interstate 70? So all that area underneath is going to be floodplain storage, and also some of the log jams they're going to try to get rid of. So a lot of money, but maybe this goes away a little bit. Those are all just regional items to take a look at. I have representatives from the school district, always good to know. You know, primarily Southwest Licking, but we got 2 other school districts here in the township. All right. So I think I emailed you last night, and we're going to have a fun little game of question and answer. So we need your smartphones. If you don't want to use a smartphone, here's a paper survey. I think you may have one. Same questions are being asked. So what this is it's always good for me to find out what you all think, and it's usually better to do that anonymously so people aren't shy about sharing information. So what I'm going to do is,
Say you email me first.
nope, I just emailed you saying you were going to do this. I didn't actually email you. So if you go to menti.com, M-E-N-T on your phone, or don't worry about it if you want to use the paper version. What this does on your phone is asks you for a code, which is 9828-9913, and it'll take you to this survey, and it's real-time information that I can gather to figure out what people are thinking and kind of the pros and cons of this whole thing. So menti.com, M-E-N-T-I, and then 9828-9913 is the code.
Can you get that?
9828 9913. So we got one person, 2 people.
Trick question.
So people are answering. So it's real time.
I hate to ask you, what was that number?
It is 9828 9913.
It isn't up the screen, we can see.
So this is all being recorded on the back end, so we can, it's again another sampling of survey information that we can get. So this is the first question. I don't think the first question is on the paper version,
No, no.
because it's really just a test to make sure you guys are comfortable with the vote. You guys are more than welcome to join too if you want, either through a paper copy or Awesome. I should have said too, the restrooms are back there. So is everybody in that wants to be in?
Did you get in? No, I was supposed to.
So there's only one at a time. Should be a code, like a slope. There's only one. Pretty neat. All right. Well, we're still rolling with it, I just didn't change it. So these are the same questions I ask everybody, because we're all the townships are facing a lot of the same issues. What is the most pressing issue in Etna Township?
They're not the same options as what's on the paper.
Yeah, St. Albans is there, I don't know. I even ran through this with my children. Oh, they were, yeah.
That's an influx of school-age children for you.
Yeah. They're not in these school districts, so that's good.
Answer these questions as it was.
Yes. So it's 7 folks answers so far. I'll move it. And once you submit, you have to wait for the next one. And I think a lot of these answers are going to be surprising. I think they're all concerning, but it's always nice just to see what everyone is and what flows to the top of the list. All right, 14, I forget, is that how many we have? 14, everybody in? All right, so if you hit refresh, I think, on your phone again, lists 3 things that should not change in the township. That could be everything from your great park system. It could be, what are things that in the town, the snow plow, snow plow, is that good? It could be services, it could be, it could be, I'm just trying to jog your memory, or jog your brain.
Well, there's one thing about life is certain. It will change. So I don't know how you come up with 3 things that can't change.
Well, what we can do is maybe put mechanisms in place to slow that change down. I don't think we're going to prevent it, but at least can we do things that are, so conservation ag. So if that should not change, then we can work towards tools and strategies to prevent that from changing, or help prevent it from changing. Not saying that we'll stop it.
Wait. Put that as a real conserving ag, that's almost the past. When you start dealing with this traffic, the person has to put themselves in that position of getting up and down these roads today. Yeah. It's a little bit late to talk about preserving ag.
Sure.
That's conservation ag districting, so 5-acre lots.
But that's not really ag, so,
Well, it's still ag.
It's not, but it's not some way of making a living in ag.
Right.
If people are making a living someplace else, coming back out to feed their chickens.
Correct, but that's
So-
not local state.
Again, this just helps, you know, as we go down this road, this process to keep things top of mind for me, that these are the guys that you guys are all thinking about. Rural character, rural. Good services, so we have good services.
I'm wondering what different people think about what they want to keep rural atmosphere. I mean, I go up to New Albany, they got white picket fence trying to look like a rural community, but yet it's as much growth as they can handle already, so.
Yeah, well, I think that you're absolutely right. There's a difference between rural character and rural, you know.
Yeah,
Such
the
two
rural,
different things.
it's leaving.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's a hard conversation too, because a lot of the farmers, the next generation isn't interested, and their retirement is tied up in their property.
I
So,
think the definition of rural, if you're talking about a subdivision, for example, would be minimum lot size or something like that, so it's not congested housing wise. That would be, to be an example, of keeping it more rural, as opposed to dense housing.
So you get a group of people who are already established here, making decisions for the people that might be moving here. I look at the Pulte situation that just went past, and anybody that would have moved in there would have known what they were getting, as far as smaller lot. Not everybody wants to mow an acre or 2 acres. Some people only want to mow a quarter of an acre. But
There's a lot of people that want poverty.
yep.
There's freestanding condominiums.
Well, those are all conversations.
You can always make a parcel smaller.
I would agree. So this is the flip side. Except I don't know where the screen went.
Oh, cord got pulled out.
Underneath your foot, Ryan, that cord plugging into it.
You put those in. So while that's coming up, 3 things that should change in the township. Thank you, sir.
I see something missing and I don't know where to stick it. Like,
Off to the side.
okay,
As long as it's on there, I can capture it.
okay.
Is that okay?
Don't we capture?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll scan all these, or all the paper copies will get scanned in and saved and used. I'm assuming we can try to make that as a reduction. That's just this. And again, maybe there's nothing that should change, so industrial should be close to all of the existing buildings. Consolidated commercial, so those two are going together. No more warehouses, better roads, more transparency, so. Green spaces. There's questions I have about these. I'll send these slides out. I might ask the group about one of these, so if it's yours, if you can, just respond. That way I can make sure I understand. Traffic lights, road improvements.
Left
So,
turn lanes in that are terrible. They're set up for 20 years down the road, and you sit at 310 trying to get on 70 for 3 to 6 minutes. And you can see all the way to Violet Township. It is nuts. I run red lights now more than I ever do. And
The one at Tollgate,
toll gate.
it is a nightmare.
It's
And,
only illegal if you get caught.
yeah,
I run
well,
the- I run the
there's a
light.
thing in there, you can say you think the light's damaged at 3314. So I,
Oh, that's good.
because I run Columbia all the
I
time.
run the one at Tollgate all the time.
Turn it left there to go south.
Turn left to go down south on Tollgate. It never turns.
It just
never
has to
turns.
be yield on red or whatever.
It needs to
Yield
be
on
like
green.
in Tennessee, flashing yellow.
Yeah,
It needs to be flashing
Michigan,
yellow.
they do it too, flashing.
Well, the whole township should be flashing yellow
Yeah.
after. 8 o'clock. But that's all easy stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, I was gonna say, we can take
I
care
don't
of
think.
I got more computer on my cell phone than it takes to do that.
I've called down to
Quite
the
right.
district whatever and complained 3 times over the lights down here. And they're like, no, I'm sorry, that was the FedEx people's light.
All right, so we're gonna go on to the next one here real quick.
That's right.
This is kind of going to Intel. This is a sliding scale. Not worried, all the way up to very worried about how Intel and everything that comes with Intel, which is a lot. What are you most worried about in terms of what that could be for the township?
It's all pretty terrifying.
Intel's terrifying?
It's going to be interesting.
Every little component when you think of it. I didn't say it's bad, I didn't say necessarily bad, but just the enormity and the overwhelmingness of it all.
Yeah.
Assuming we ignore St. Albans and
Please.
insert Etna.
Please.
It's definitely going to have some impact, or unanticipated impacts on St. Albans.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some lively discussions.
To the point that they're probably anticipating that.
I think this is in my opinion, it's not, she's been through a $20 billion development.
Here the other nationals on the classifieds.
What other businesses will
Well, Columbus is already talking to 20 different suppliers. And they expect up to 50 throughout the state of Ohio.
Suppliers.
Folks say they were building 2 new buildings.
Ancillary suppliers.
Two in the data farm.
Just ancillary
Like
suppliers.
you're sure we can't keep relying on 4 companies for everything we need. I hear everybody say that, let somebody else produce it, we don't want it in my backyard, yet they want it, but they use it.
Yeah, they complain that they can't go buy a car because it doesn't have a chip.
Exactly.
All right, so we got 13. I think everybody's in.
They have to get it down.
So traffic. Same question. It's just 5 different components of that question. And out of these 10 components, there may be something that isn't asked that I put on here that may be of concern. We'll go through those a little during this process. So if it's something you haven't seen, that's what they're.
I've never seen it outside of once my kids got to school. I haven't seen any community character.
So housing and community character changing. So these are some positives of Intel. So there's going to be some benefits, obviously. Career workforce preparation, economic development, tech, high-wage jobs. What are you most interested in or not interested in? discussion about workforce and tech and trade. I wish there was, but
I'm certain for creating a zone like that involving the workforce, but that would be less than
I'm sure.
I like to train kids for jobs that don't exist. I mean, they've got that.
Yeah. Here's some other ones. Housing investment, increased tax revenue. Increased tax revenue for the governments. You know, obviously that's going to come out of your pocket. Potentially the innovation and then multimodal infrastructure. So whether that's light rail, anything like that, they come from this. Almost. So all 14 are in there, so housing investment, be some opportunity. So what type of, this is, I think you just mentioned this, what type of housing? So this is a ranking, so the one that is needed most is first, the one that's needed less is fourth. See, I got it there. I must have got distracted by the kids.
How old are your kids?
9 and 11.
Would you consider townhomes condos or townhomes
Yes.
rentals?
Yeah, no, I would consider those condos. That could be condos, it could be the same thing. It's just really the ownership changes. Condos would be single ownership, townhomes can be single or rental.
I know a lot of condo associations, they have a percentage of amount that we rent it out, so once the condo association finds out that it's already 40% rented, then nobody else can buy it, condo can rent it out.
Two more. Good. Commercial. This isn't saying we're going to get it, but if you had your wish list, what type of commercial development would you in the township? And answer can be none as well. Every community I've done this, everyone wants to eat.
Who's that about donut shop, doesn't it?
No. We need one, we need one that's the restaurant.
Jelly bar.
Restaurants, we track the restaurants, just put it over.
Where is it?
Livingston and Yearling.
Oh. Those must be some good
That's in
donuts.
town. They have the best in town. Why? You need your charge card.
The one in, my daughter uses
So we want some restaurants.
it. My daughter uses it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So this is just a general one. Is there,
Donut shop.
during this process, is there groups, is there people, is there somebody that we should, or at least I should be talking with just as a stakeholder? You know, schools are represented here. Like I said earlier, church groups, is there anything could be done?
In addition, to your
Yeah, but that's okay if you put groups here as well.
When you say stakeholder, what does that mean?
Anyone that has a vested interest in the success of our task here.
I see that as-
Your list earlier, in agriculture is where all your ground is gonna come from for development.
The farmer should be from.
And you don't have that much representation here of the landowners.
So we can get in there.
I think that'd be a fascinating question. And I always thought about this with anything you would do on 310 north of 70. There's only like 4 landowners left to develop. Why not bring them in a room and find out instead of, that's all the people that unfortunately didn't sell their land for Cumberland Trails or Cameron Chase. So now they're ready to retire and no one lets them do anything with their land, so.
They got the most acreage and the least representation.
Well, even south Main Street on 310.
South of, I'm interested, I'd like to know how many owners on that 6,000 acres. Like what, are we talking 100 people? Because I think they should be in the room, because they're the ones who.
How many acres?
Well, you said south, were you talking about 310, you talking about south of 70?
Well, south of 70 is harder because of the water sewer. The development there is slower.
The south of 70 is only a half a mile to the county line. And we own a big share of that, south of 70.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is with Pataskala coming down in Etna, Pataskala could do something just north of Refugee that we don't want.
They're already doing that. I mean, there's warehouses already started.
Right.
North of 70.
But for Etna, we only have like 4 landowners north of 40.
Those landowners have all got specific development plans already established.
So you really don't have that many landowners on 310 from that one side of Etna to the other side of Etna. You'd still have to do something.
Yeah. Well, I think they should be included because that's having that kind of land in Etna is different than somebody having a subdivision house.
Correct.
I feel that, and it's their right to do with their property what they want. I think the other part is this is just something I see other communities do. If you want to control that as a community, create a CIC where you start buying that property and you can control it. Because right now, an individual owning 30-some acres on 310 is going to be a development of some sort that will upset somebody else. So.
Yeah, if I had my way, the city of Perth in Australia does their zoning commission is done, the selection of the zoning commission is done by jury duty. Like, will we do jury duty? Because they have found that taking a random sampling of the community is much better than the people that show up to meetings. It's just the people that it's about ready to piss off, almost. So they take a representative sample of the entire city, and those people are going to make the decision on development. It's really interesting.
We have 2 people with land here. And then how many people are in Cumberland Trail?
Cumberland Trails are all represented here tonight.
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
I didn't pick the committee.
I know you did.
And I would like to say, my statements are more for you than Cumberland Trails. I don't think Cumberland Trails should be controlling what you do with your land. That's an investment, retirement, things like that. I think you should be at the table and be able to be asked what you want to do with your land. That's, I don't want you thinking I'm telling you.
I thought your argument was that there was more wish to be heard from the people who own the farming lands because they have a bigger stake.
I think that's what you're saying.
Well,
Go talk to the farmer.
I think the decisions on the farmer affect the Cumberland Trails people more than, but I do think the Cumberland Trails farmer the Cumberland Trails people have cut the literal balls off the farmers on being able to get rid of their land. Unfortunately, that Walmart out here was a perfect example of commercial land that a commercial entity wanted to buy, and Etna ran it out. It just, I don't want a Walmart, but it's a commercial zone piece of land that could be.
Now we want stores.
I'm on your side.
I know what you're saying, but now they're saying we want stores.
Well, this is what 15 people were saying.
Right.
But also, sometimes, as someone who's grown up on farms and other places and stuff like that too, one of the things that I do want to look at is different members of an agricultural community may have different plans. Right? So you may have one family that there's their next generation interested, and I'm just looking to cash out from retirement in Florida. And then you've got another family where it's 6 generations deep and going strong. And those two, just because it's land and land, it's both agriculture and agriculture, those two are not making the same long-term plans for those two, and it affects the rest of the community as far as what they may be deciding to do or may not be deciding to do.
And that's been real evident in Hagen farms. I mean, you know, it's when that generation of farmer was ready to go, it went fast and became subdivisions. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do in meetings when I'm talking to people. I am in land development, civil engineering, and do plans for warehouses, subdivisions, RVs, you name it. Is in this situation is knowing who is developing. You know, is when I was at Barrington Ridge and they were real upset about some apartments going down across the street, is put Google Earth on in 1994 and it shows all the roads and show Barrington Ridge and ask where in this farm is your house. You know, where in these 300 homes on this one farm, which one of those is your house? And it's a very good evident Cumberland Trails. My house used to be an apple orchard. I mean, and that's only since 1994. So it's, I mean, that is a very interesting picture that I like to show people. I love the development. I love where I live. I love everything about it. I picked good. I have a golf course that couldn't be developed into houses behind me. I'm not backing up to land that under power lines that could be, you know, until like New Albany develops where the land under the power lines became so valuable. That is far from there that you will never get high-end homes under power lines in our lifetime here. I'm not saying it won't happen. Intel is another thing. So that's a look that I have.
I look way outside, what if there's no high power lines?
I guess I'd like to explain
Gotta buy the reasons.
my family's situation a little bit to you so you understand farmers' situation. Nobody's making a living on 80 acres today unless they're growing something they shouldn't be growing. But we farm 3,000 acres. And our base of operation is between Wagram Road and Tollgate Road, south of 70. So we've got to travel through all the development to get any place. And all these people that want to see agriculture and so forth, when you meet them on the road, that's when you find one finger coming up instead of waving friendly at you. And we're definitely feeling pushed out and so forth as we're not willing to travel 15 miles and then haul everything back through this traffic area to our storage bins and so forth. So we see the end in sight. And as prices that we're seeing in land, we're ready. And so I don't know how I can explain any better than that, but most of the acres that you're seeing on your maps are smaller farms that are being rented by farmers like ourselves. And
There's that aspect too.
Well, we've lost ground for 40 years. Every year we've lost a farm that goes to development, and we've been told that that's progress. Now we get to this day and age, and all of a sudden it's not progress. We want to stop it. And that's the mentality that we just went through last fall with referendum and so forth. And
I felt like that referendum, just as a point of reference, was not an objection to the development, but to the character of that development in terms of the level of density compared to the.
Are we talking about a tiny thing, or are we talking about the longer protect? There was two of them that.
he's talking about the pole. I didn't think it was such a bad deal, because the people that would be moving out to it knew what they'd be buying. And they knew if they didn't want a quarter acre lot or a third acre lot, they wouldn't buy in there. They had a lot of green space.
They were the 6
But traffic issues needed to be addressed to handle the traffic
But what's gonna go now?
in and out.
Right now. I mean, what's coming out?
Depends, I mean, this is why we're here.
Well, those, I appreciate your context of farming and ag. And so what other issues, I mean, that's number 8 on the agenda today was what issues is the township facing, whether that's annexation, loss of agriculture. I think agricultural and rural are 2 different things. You know, I think agriculture is what you're talking about. I think the rural nature and the design is probably different. But, you know, obviously you all signed up and filled out a simple application, but you took some time, you're interested, you're donating, you know, 20 hours of your life, if not more, to this process. So what is it that the township is facing that made you want to sign up?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Kind of back up just a little bit. I think there's a great possibility that even though, like, I'm here from the Preserve of Royal Oaks, everybody here is from their own neighborhood, but there's a huge possibility, and some of that I know true, that we are also representing school-aged children. We're also representing business owners, Jeff. We're also, you know, besides the farmers. I have a farm in Knox County. I was with the Ohio Department of Agriculture for years. I'm kind of aware. So if we could just keep in mind that everybody's bringing more little pieces than just our place on the map, I think that might help. And I noticed with the migration of so many people into Ohio from other areas, as far as I know, Ohio's #1 manufacturing is still agriculture. And now it seems like it's like Ohio's best kept secret. Just sideboard, maybe in the park, put it on, park it or table it. If we can somehow promote our #1 manufacturing at some point when we can. One more thing that I think is equal. Mayor Mike and Patasko put up, this is a farming friendly community sign by the Patasko City Ordinance. I'm not saying we need to do that, I'm just saying, I saw it, I liked it, I wave at you. And I understand why you did it too. So, thank you.
Sure. Oh, thank you.
I think for some of us, at least I was for myself, if you're looking at Columbus and you're seeing what's going on out there, and you want to remain in a rural atmosphere, you don't want to have the crime push forward, push east where we are, that would be one of the reasons why I said, well, I don't see what's going on here. Have a state or say how I feel about what's going on. Because I'm here today, and I don't want to see this turn into, you know, something that we can't repair. And as we get bigger, other cities push into our area, and I don't want to be, you know, absorbed.
Cool.
If zoning doesn't have purpose, it's just rules. If there's something you're trying to do and create large, so for example, the reason you're in the position you're in is because if it slowly migrates from one area to another and you create those zones, it helps prevent some of
We
that.
knew 30
So that
years
you don't get
ago
land.
that day was coming. It's just a matter of time.
Well, it's not random, right? Jim, that's what you do for a living. You could probably do a seminar on how the phenomenon of, you know, the donut effect from an urban environment like Columbus continues to spread, right? And it only spreads in such a thickness, if you will, without leaving a void behind it, right? So as it spreads, the urban blight that comes after that is inside of that donut. And then, of course, you revitalize the downtown Columbus and you start that whole process over, right? So it's a wave effect, and it's fairly straightforward if you study that type of thing. And of course, being involved in, zoning here in the township since 2003, I think now. So a number of years we've had to kind of look at these things and how do you maintain that, right? How do you mitigate that? How do you not become the blight part on the backside of the positive part as it comes our way? We want the positives, but we don't want the negatives that come with it. We don't want the crime, we don't want the traffic, we don't want the other issues, but we want the Starbucks.
Price Road development,
Right.
It was a very good example of that. Happened in 1988.
Used to be a great place. Now you don't really want to.
Because it went to
Put a shopping
256.
center in.
And then
Yeah.
it went to 310, that hops.
So as it spreads, right, the idea, I think, for us, really is, what do we want, what do we not want, what are we going to allow, what are we not going to allow?
Definitely don't put apartment buildings in.
What's your question on this? Correct.
Yeah. What is it that drives you to volunteer your time to come to this thing?
Because like Mr. Harvey is eventually going to sell his property, and it is going to develop in one way, shape, or form. The question is, how can the community help guide that in a way that's good for the community and good for Mr. Harvey?
There was a man, you may have known him, but he was Tom Dalcoma. He was hired by Lincoln County 20 years ago or so.
Oh, Tom Frederick? Tom Frederick?
Tom Dalcoma. But he laid out total crossing. He laid out the Mason Montgomery Expressway on 71 just north of Cincinnati. And there was nothing there when he laid that out. I see an opportunity for 70, not, you're going to say because I know what's on the other side of 70, but it's what Tom Dalcoma described. A new interchange, if it happened near Amazon like there's been talked about, there's all possibilities for everything being new on the south side of 70. Shopping centers and everything, they would open it up. But I see Intel now is talking about interchange at White River Road, which is already, everything's blocked off. And if they bring that road over and north of Broad Street and come down through the industrial park to Amazon, like they're talking about, that was part of the plan.
There's no doubt that's going to happen.
Pardon me?
I don't think there's any doubt that's going to happen. Maybe not in the next 5 to 10 years.
Come out of Amazon or come out of White River Road in 70?
And tell south down Main Way.
But wouldn't it be better for Etna Township, when you're trying to develop a plan, wouldn't it be better if it came down through the industrial park and lined up with a new interchange?
It would.
Where nothing is.
Corridors are a positive.
Pardon me?
Corridors are a positive. That's basically what I was alluding to. You're great corridors. Like
that was sort of drawn out. I remember going to a county fair, and they had, it had to be, 80s, and they had an interchange at toll gate, I think.
Yes.
They were showing it there.
See, that might have been the Tom Dalcoma era, it may be that far back, because I've lost track of the
I think it was
last
in
30
the
years.
I remember, I mean, that was like, this is gonna happen, and then it sort of went away.
And there's projections even out Fairfield County for bringing the road up from 33 up toward 310, or if you go over.
Yeah, let's say the roads there.
Right.
Jim, the township spends some money, and I don't know if you're aware, it's probably a document that I'd like to see our group see, is that they had Morrissey do a mini study on traffic or something, back to your point, they talked about either going through the industrial part of there, they call it the Etna extension, they just talked about today, in fact, with the TID, but you're right now, there's some talk with Intel, is it going to be made, but that document, Morrissey has it, Maybe that's something, I didn't know if you were aware of that or not.
Yeah, I've only been aware of it through Bill Lozier.
Bill, right.
I'll see what I can get from him.
And I haven't seen it yet, but I think it'd be interesting to see what's being talked and obviously it'll impact, like you said, how.
So my way of thinking makes more sense to come down through the industrial park than it does to come down Main Street, south of Cross Street.
I think you're
At
right.
some point, get over to the line up to that road.
Well, the fun part about this whole exercise is there'll be some big maps here pretty soon in the next couple of meetings, and we'll be marking and drawing and coloring on.
Or your own crayon?
Plus some markers.
You know, kind of on that same subject, one thing comes to mind, sometimes something direct, you know, just like Intel does, something slightly outside of your area has some influence here. Well, you know, we're about up against Harrison Township, and Route 40 already having a large influx of this stuff. It's inevitable that now by Flying J is going to, you know, the road is already even there, and so it's a guarantee that that interchange is going to develop.
158.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a 280 acre plan already.
Yeah, so I saw that on the northeast side there. So, you know, there's already even, essentially already infrastructure there for that. There's definitely going to be more influence on 40, on, you know, east of 310, for some of that stuff that there already is. There's already got one just east of York Road, I think. But as far as that goes, you know, if that's already set up, you know, like I said, the corridor concept, that also provides a traffic path. We need to include that interchange in part of our thought process, even though it isn't strictly within the township. Because that is going to develop, and that potentially solves some other problem. If, you know, the creature we have right now is for Arizona traffic is 310, but if that's built up more, that actually would help alleviate 310 traffic by traveling on out 40, you know.
Is there any more thought of the roads coming through poles on the south side of 70 over to Amazon?
Yeah, I think that's to Gary's point. I think they're looking at some of the circulation. I think they're looking
Extension. That makes that much more value to the interchange.
Sure. I think that's one of the things they were looking at. Was making that
It is. It is. That's what the Jeds helped pay for Bill Lozier to be looking into that. So, yes.
I'll give you that.
Yes.
And once I get all this information, I'll send it all on to everybody.
Well, the other thing, Jim, that everyone knows with what's, I think you referred to, what's going on up in the task lawn. You know, that parkwood is a nice connector, but there's, I think, well over 500 acres up there. Now they've got another 1 million square foot. So the real thing is the impact it's going to have on that, because that traffic's going to come south, unless they go broad. Some of it might go that way.
The JRS area.
Yeah, the Upper East Side. So that was always my concern, that if that all goes industrial or warehousing, I never envisioned that becoming a warehouse community. That's kind of, and so I joined this committee because I don't want to see more hodgepodge. I mean, when you look at the previous plan, I thought there were a lot of good points in there. They talked about conservation, agricultural, developing those programs, but I don't know that all was ever done. Probably a lack of, you know, staff or involvement or whatever, but I just, you know, good planning many times makes it sustainable. You can still farm, you can sell your property, but as you said, Trent, it's got a positive impact on the community, but yet you maximize the.
Farming just gets pushed out. The farming of any size.
That's what happens in these urban areas. When you look at Hamilton and Hamilton Road, Forest Road, even 20, 25 years ago, when that was. I remember my first experience came up at 70 on Hamilton Road. It was cornfields on most of them.
I remember.
Well, that
But
great.
70 is a key issue. We're just how blessed Etna Township is to have 70. If you want restaurants, same things to happen. If you didn't have 70, you would be rural.
And on the flip side of that, enormous blessing and a curse at the same time is the proximity of 40 right this second. because you create a weird traffic pattern, that's a guaranteed odd traffic pattern that's got strange impacts. We're already seeing some of them just because of that. And oddly enough, Etna itself, right here, it doesn't really do much for Etna itself. Actually, makes life pretty rough. It's a little in between.
Having 40 that used to be 70 and then 70 is more of a curse for anything we want to do, because it's why we're a warehouse community. It's the best access you're going to have, and you have Pickerington, Pataskala, even New Albany has to get through Etna to get on the freeway. And if we got that there, I mean, the transportation opportunities right here that were long, if you ever watched the development in the 70 before, one of my favorite stories was, you guys know the guy who owned Shamrock?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to put his pool back in, dig it out, put it in. I had said I was in BCA, telling him no, it's in the setback, whatever. And traffic, I was worried about the traffic. And he slammed me by saying, yeah, it used to be more. Because 158 was the end of 70, and you came down on 70 right across there, and it was an eye opener that 40 used to be 7 all the way into downtown. So it's built for the traffic and everything that can happen, whether you like it or not. That and then having 70 right there is in the narrow shape of that, and you just don't have room to have, the corridors are almost like just cross sections of, you got to pick a road and say, okay, this one's it, and it's whichever has the best access to 70 and 40, which none of them.
Used to be National Trails.
I heard this weekend.
All right.
At my house.
The next steps here, unless there's any, I'll sit here all night listening. No, this is great. I got a list of things. It puts things into context for me. So I'm going to be working on the text and then draft the community survey so we can take a look at it next time. And then jump into the hot and heavy on the future land use. Go from there. Any questions? If you did a paper survey, I could have it back just so we can implement everything. If there's any questions between now and July, whenever we get together, let me know, email me, give me a call. I'll help you out as much as I can. If there's something you're curious about, by all means, let me know. If anybody needs a card, let me know. I think you have my email.
I don't know what card you are.
All right, folks, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It was nice being on over here.